Please stand for the moderator.
Thank you, Synod. And welcome back to our second day. I trust that you've had some rest, much needed rest as we begin this day and also our second day. As we come, we'll be led in devotions this morning by Reverend Joan Wright-Howie. And she'll lead us, the chaplain, my chaplain. Before candidating for ministry, Joan Wright-Howie was a Uniting Church youth worker. She served with the Burwood, Fitzroy and Habitat congregations, coordinated the Synod Lacuna project, was spiritual formation advisor with the CTM, head of faith and development at World Vision Australia, and spiritual care supervisor with BAPCare. She also practiced as a spiritual director and supervisor, providing formation for spiritual direction and supervision, and leads retreats. Joan is currently the Whitley College Mary Pope Scholarship recipient, doing her PhD in the provision of spirituality-informed care.
To do something? Oh, there we are. Just ask and you will receive. Well, welcome to this space where we can connect with the God who is with us, closer than breathing. I'd like to invite you into a space of prayer this morning, which is a reflective space where you can use your imagination to connect into the life of God. It's a prayer that I learnt from Sister Maureen Conroy a long time ago when I was training to be a supervisor of spiritual directors. And she taught us this prayer that involves opening our palms, one palm and the other, and placing them on our lap or just somewhere comfortable on the table. And then closing our eyes, noticing our breath, the breath flowing in and flowing out of our bodies. Sensing ourselves with our feet on the ground, and perhaps even imagining that there are roots going down from the soles of our feet into the country beneath as we connect with country. And then bringing our awareness to our breath, and the breath flowing in and flowing out. God breathes with us on every breath. I invite you now to bring your attention to the palm of one hand, doesn't matter which one. And imagine that in that palm of your hand, you're holding a grace that you bring with you to Synod. And using your imagination, allow that grace to take form and shape. What does it look like? What is the shape of it? The weight of it? Allow God to create an image in the palm of your hand. A grace that you bring with you. What does it look like? How does it feel in the hand to hold this grace? What's it like to know that you hold it and you bring it with you? Then when you're ready, I invite you to draw your attention to the palm of the other hand. And imagine that in the other hand, you hold a resistance that you bring with you into this synod. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What's the shape of it? The weight of it? What's it like to hold it and bring it with you? How heavy is it? Just noticing that we hold in the palm of one hand a grace and in the palm of the other hand a resistance. And I invite you to bring your palms close to one another. And just notice what happens to the grace and to the resistance as they come close to one another. Perhaps they interact with one another. I invite you to bring your palms close to your heart. Notice what that feels like. What's happening to the grace and what's happening to the resistance? What's the invitation that God is giving to your heart this morning? As you arrive again this morning at Synod, What's stirring in your heart? How do you arrive? Out beyond the idea of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. Loving God, source of life, meet us in that field where grace and resistance come together in creativity and love. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Joan. We now will be having our Bible study, which will be led by John Flett, the Reverend Professor John Flett. He is a professor of missiology and intercultural theology at Pilgrim Theological College, specialises in constructive theologies and methodologies developed in conversations with intercultural and ecumenical approaches. John's publications have explored such ranging topics as intercultural hermeneutics, migrant Christianity, multiculturalism, contextual theologies and methods, religion and theology in Oceania, ecumenical accounts of difference and unity, including such things as cartography, narratives of arrival, ancestors. He has lived and taught in the US, the United Kingdom, New Zealand, South Korea, Germany, the DRC, Romania, France, the Netherlands, PNG, and Australia. And he will be leading 3 Bible study sessions over the next 3 days of our Synod meeting. Welcome, John. Thank you.
Good morning. Annyeonghaseyo. Ni hao. Selamat pagi. Malo elele. Talofa lava. Kia ora tēnā koutou katoa. I would like to start this morning by recognising that we are theologising. All the work that we are doing is occurring on stolen land. So all of the work that we are doing needs to be work for reconciliation and for peace. So I'm going to be doing 3 Bible studies dealing with issues of intercultural relationship and reconciliation between the peoples of God. Celeste missed out that I am also a minister in the Uniting Church in Australia. In the Presbytery of Port Phillip West. But it is my honour to have been asked by moderator Philipua to lead the Bible studies, and I'm very much looking forward to his leadership over the next few years. So the text that we are looking at today is Hebrews 13, 7-14, and the title of it is Jesus the Same. I put up here the head of Christ. I don't know if anyone's seen this image before, but this image is probably the most produced image of Jesus Christ through the 20th century. They estimate that it sold over 3 billion copies. So here we have an image of who Jesus is, and we're going to look at the idea that Jesus is the same. So slide 2. Remember your leaders who spoke the word of God to you. Consider the outcome of their way of life and imitate their faith. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Do not be carried away by all kinds of strange teachings. It is good for our hearts to be strengthened by grace, not by eating ceremonial foods, which is of no benefit to those who do so. We have an altar from which those who minister at the tabernacle have no right to eat. The high priest carries the blood of animals into the most holy place as a sin offering, but the bodies are burnt outside the camp. And so Jesus also suffered outside the city gate to make the people holy through his own blood. Let us then go to him outside the camp, bearing the disgrace he bore. For here we do not have an enduring city, but we are looking for the city that is to come. So the guiding theme of the Synod, Pilgrims of the Spirit, speaks both to who we are called to be, pilgrims, and the agent guiding us, the Spirit. Recognizing this, however, leads to a certain problem. John 3:8 states, "The wind blows where it wishes. You will hear its sound, but you will not know from where it comes or from where it goes. So it is with everyone who is born of the Spirit." As pilgrims, we are people of the Spirit. That is, a people directed by a wind, which comes from where it wills and goes to where it wills, and all without human knowing and beyond human control. We are pilgrims following this mystery, this thing beyond us, this thing which always calls us beyond ourselves. Our reading the Bible together over the coming days will consider this uncontrollable movement through the lens of difference. That is, through God speaking in apparently impossible ways, be that through a donkey, an unclean woman, an invading imperial army, a Korean female, or an Indian male. To begin, did you know that while the contemporary ecumenical movement offers many definitions of unity, it has not developed a single one for diversity and difference? There is no ecumenical definition of diversity or difference. None. Not one. This may well be something of unfathomable observation, a claim that I am making that you cannot possibly believe is true. It seems idiotic. The problem is, I assure you, it is indeed true. Not only has it failed to develop a theology of diversity, it has not even developed an argument for why diversity is the proper word to be set over against the idea of unity. Why is it unity and diversity put in relationship to one another? For example, the biblical text talks often of unity, but the opposite to unity is division, not diversity. Yet within ecumenical documentation, the idea of diversity functions as a sliding scale, a zero-sum game. The more diversity always means the less unity. The less diversity always means more unity. Just like jumping on a seesaw. One kid goes down, the other kid goes up. When there's less diversity, we have more unity. When we have more diversity, we have less unity. Giving to one means taking away from the other. Or, to cite from the 2003 Princeton proposal, we may rightly celebrate diversity and difference, but diversity is easily conscripted to sinful purposes, and it is not easy to separate the diversity that we should be valued from the diversity that must be deplored. So diversity appears within ecumenical documentation as a threat to unity. It is something that requires a set of controls. Now, the absence of definition and its link to division is not accidental. It results from theological commitments concerned with the continuity of the faith through time and the hierarchies and institutional structures in support of this, along with a way of conceiving what is the universal. These commitments result in a de facto account of difference and how church encounters and reconciles difference. This comes through the idea of transcendence. Unity is a reality as the church transcends cultural and economic, national and racial boundaries. Does that statement sound familiar to anyone? It's in the basis of union. So we've received from the ecumenical movement this idea of unity which occurs as we transcend cultural difference. And while this approach is common through ecumenical documentation, including that of the UCA, it is part of the legacy of colonisation. Over the past few decades, we have learnt that the idea of transcending culture relies on something called a position from nowhere. It means that I can stand above all things and survey all things, pretending that I have no location. Or, and you may have heard this phrase before, we have no culture, only other people have culture. When we say that, however, we have made a type of claim, and that claim is that our cultural location is the proper universal norm. We are the ones who transcend all things. And to advocate for the transcending of culture is to advance one's own cultural expression as the proper embodiment of the gospel itself. It is the fundamental colonial claim, and it is embedded within ecumenical accounts of diversity because the contemporary ecumenical movement's own cultural location is found in the high point of European imperialism. In other words, when the World Council of Churches first came into being in a Edinburgh 1910 conference, this was the time of the beginning of the end of European imperialism. This was the milieu within which it functioned. And so, to quote Raimondo Barreto, it was culturally and epistemologically exclusionary, located within Western imagination and norms, and its understanding of unity was shaped by the Christendom ecumenical project. So it's not simply an idea of unity, but how does unity come about? What's its form? Second, these ideas which link division and diversity and locate unity in the transcending of culture result in a method for approaching difference. In other words, we don't talk about difference, we don't define difference, but we have all of these theological things in place which lead to a de facto mode of dealing with difference. And the language we use for this is we celebrate and cherish difference. In this approach, the hidden assumption is that Christianity remains essentially a religion of the West, and that the new theological task is to celebrate the achievements, insights, and variant formulations of other cultures. Western cultural imaginaries, values, and norms control the stage, and cultural difference simply adds colour. But it adds colour to unchanged Western forms. To put it another way, an Aboriginal theologian once commented that Galatians 3:28, there is neither Jew nor Gentile, slave nor free, nor is there male or female, for you are all one in Christ. This verse was the most colonial verse in the Bible because it denied her particularity. The church already knew in advance how to deal with diversity before it had ever encountered her and her difference. Her own difference gave nothing to the church itself. The church celebrated that difference, but did not change as a result of it. She, her mob, the mobs throughout Australia and the Torres Strait Islands, the peoples through the Pacific, the Māori in Aotearoa, meant nothing, contribute nothing to the theology or structuring of the people of God. We celebrate cultural difference, but the fundamentals stay the same. This is a common, contemporary, and lamented experience, one often linked in theological terms to the experience of circumcision. As the first church leaders told new Gentile converts in Antioch that unless you are circumcised in the tradition of Moses, you cannot be saved, Acts 15:1, so to cite Miguel de la Torre, the circumcision controversy continues to rage. The rise of Euro-Christianity has demanded that all on the margins, men and women, cut off the foreskin of their identity and their culture. The symbols by which they perceive the physical and metaphysical worlds are dismissed as unenlightened, while they are simultaneously taught to parrot the worldview of those who have grown rich off the global south's cheap labour and natural resources. Close quote. Part of the difficulty of saying this in this type of gathering lies in the hearing. I doubt that anyone gathered here seeks to separate people from their identities. Nor is this simply an issue confronted by Anglo members alone. Such problems exist also within Pacific, African, and Asian peoples of the church, and indeed between those peoples themselves. This is all a necessary and inevitable part of being a multicultural church. Rather, the difficulty of the hearing lies in the capacity to recognize that the problem is submerged, hidden, embodied through the church, all too real. It is a living and continuous experience at all levels of the church. Now, I recognise that we've spent a lot of time talking about approaches to difference before actually turning to the biblical text. And you may be wondering why. Well, this is purposeful. The path ahead of us into the biblical text means knowing when we are misreading the Bible, where we have interpreted the Bible through the lenses of unity as cultural transcendence. In other words, this idea of cultural transcendence is the way of dealing with difference becomes read back into the biblical text. Indeed, the following 3 Bible studies argue that cultural transcendence contravenes not only fundamental descriptions of Jesus Christ and the Spirit through the New Testament, but also the revelation of God in the Hebrew Bible. Likewise, those 3 argue that the root of division lies not in difference, but in claim to sameness manifest in cultural and religious form. The road to division lies in the demand of circumcision. The call we share as pilgrims of the Spirit is not to cherish or celebrate difference. The living reality of difference is the foundational form of life in Christ and in the Spirit who leads us into all truth. To be pilgrims of the Spirit are to be pilgrims always encountering difference. Now, I have said that the ecumenical movement has failed to define diversity. This is not quite true. There does exist one pseudo-definition. On the 20th of February 1991, on the final day of the 7th Assembly of the World Council of Churches held in Canberra, South Korean feminist theologian Chung Kyung-kyung lectured. Her lecture combined Christian teachings and practices with elements of her shamanistic tradition, and this prompted a frenzied discussion regarding the possibility of paganism and syncretism and all manner of problems. This led to a special emergency session where they thought they had to come up with a definition of diversity. And this diversity is as follows. Diversities which are rooted in theological traditions, various cultural, ethnic, or historical contexts are integral to the nature of communion. Yet there are limits to diversity. Diversity is illegitimate when, for instance, it makes impossible the common confession of Jesus Christ as God and the Saviour, the same yesterday, today, and forever. Hebrews 3:8. There are a number of things to notice at this point. The first is, note that the definition of diversity does not define diversity. While it notes different forms diversity may take, the idea itself is an abstraction and an essentialized reality without any attachment to context whatsoever. It conceives diversity without thinking about how different contexts may themselves define diversity. There's nothing contextual about this account of diversity. And while it asserts that diversity is integral to communion, it fails to state how it might be so. Nor do we find any theological supports whatsoever for this definition of diversity. Rather, in similar matter to the above Princeton proposal, the full focus of this definition falls on imposing limits. Diversity is only legitimate in relation to the prevailing authority of a common confession. This commonality refers not to the lines of inquiry and experiences as they exist within the numerical majority of world Christianity. It refers to the common of established or historic traditions, the common confession of the Western located traditions as they have existed through time. This leads to the singular theological control within the statement, the sameness or identity of Jesus through time. The problem is, the meaning of Hebrews 3:8 is actually the complete opposite to how it is used in this ecumenical statement. Hebrews 3:8 is not at all concerned with the continuity of an established tradition. It is quite the opposite. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever, because Jesus is always outside the gates. Jesus is always the discarded and disgraced one. Like a significant portion of the New Testament, the book of Hebrews addresses the pressure upon the Christian community to conform to a received Jewish tradition. The call itself makes perfect sense. This was a tradition which sought to embody the teachings of the Torah, of the wisdom and prophetic traditions of the Hebrew Bible. Circumcision was anchored within the sacred text as a sign of the covenant, a sign of God's promises to God's people. This was a practice, a spiritual practice, thousands of years old, unquestioned, inviolate. Jesus, as the promised Messiah, stood and stands within that tradition. Against this background, taking on a singular identifying mark of the law really seems to be a small thing, not a burden at all. But then enters the Spirit. In Acts chapter 10, we see Peter undergoing a conversion in his encounter with the Roman centurion Cornelius. Peter learns a big lesson. God shows no partiality. And this statement, God shows no partiality, appears 6 times within the New Testament text, including in James 2:9, where showing anyone who shows partiality, for James, is committing sin. Based on this experience, Peter, the missionary to the Gentiles, observes how God bore witness to them by giving them the Holy Spirit, just as he did to us. And he made no distinction. He showed no partiality between them and us, having cleaned their hearts by faith. That's Acts 15:7-11. So the relationship to established religious and cultural tradition is the key issue through the New Testament, defining the interpretation of who Jesus is and the acting of the Spirit. The doctrine of justification by faith alone through grace, developed because of this missionary discourse. Or, the New Testament itself is framed by intercultural and interreligious engagement, by the encounter with such difference as that between the people of God, the Jews, and the not people of God, the Gentiles. You cannot get a bigger difference between those two things, the people of God and the not people of God. In terms of today's reading, the sameness of Jesus yesterday, today, and forever is set over against strange teachings and ceremonial foods and those who minister at the tabernacle. This is a strong polemic, which we'll see over the next 2 days too, one through which the Christian tradition has brought about reprehensible forms of embodiment. You can use this polemic to be completely anti-Semitic. But for our purposes, this rejection of tradition is due to who Jesus is. Jesus suffered outside the gate. This being outside the gate is further described as bearing disgrace. We know that the impure, the blind, the disabled, those with disease, Samaritans, Gentiles, those who did not belong, could not enter the city, could not enter Jerusalem. Jesus is the same yesterday and today and forever because he invites the Gentiles, the blind, the lame, the Samaritans, those who do not belong, in their difference. Outside the gates, they were not required to become Jews. Outside the gates, they bore the same disgrace that Jesus bore. Or to put it another way, the gospel demands that the difference does not become the same, but that difference remains different. Difference does not need to become accommodated within a universalized norm. Encountering difference, mandating that difference belongs at the center of power. Negotiating differences, all of this is the calling of the community as pilgrims of the Spirit. We do not have an enduring city. We are pilgrims looking for a city that is to come. Or, in the words of Gustavo Gutierrez, to be converted is to know and experience the fact that, contrary to the laws of physics, we can stand straight according to the gospel only when the center of our gravity is outside of ourselves. The gravity of the gospel is always outside the gates. Now, this sounds all well and good, and no doubt we've heard this call to pilgrimage oft repeated. Paragraph 2 of the Braces of Union uses this exact language. To quote, "The church is a pilgrim people, always on the way towards a promised goal. Here the church does not have a continuing city, but seeks one to come." But what does this pilgrimage in the Spirit entail? What are the implications for how we gather, how we worship, for our institutions, committees, for the way in which we encounter difference both within our midst and beyond our immediate communities? We'll explore this question more tomorrow. For now, remember that the world Christian experience refers back to the concern of circumcision as an indicator of present experience. The experience of circumcision remains a living reality within our Christian communities. The fact that the ecumenical movement itself, a movement which stretches across Christian difference, misinterprets Hebrews 13:8, uses that text to argue for its opposite, demonstrates the continual temptation to impose our own norms, our own forms of circumcision. It illustrates our capacity to fail to hear Scripture, and to use it for our own ends, and especially so in the encounter of religio-cultural difference. It is the problem in the midst of every Christian community, and one which the Spirit calls us beyond. Now, I'm going to end with the same prayer over the next 3 days, but the prayer is going to need a bit of explanation. This prayer is from the World Council of Churches, but was developed in the Philippines. I don't know how many of you have ever in real life seen a rice paddy. When a rice paddy is originally planted, the differentiation of the individual paddies is plain to see. So on the image here, you can see that all of the paddies are divided up, and you can see those borders very clearly. Such differentiation is necessary to the cultivation of the rice itself. Each paddy is engineered to maintain specific water levels, to regulate soil temperature, to maintain a nutrient-rich ecosystem, which often includes the introduction of fish or amphibians such as frogs or snails. The difference that you see is necessary as an enclosed habitat. It is necessary for the health of all the things living in there. The maturation of these plants does not lead to the destruction of the paddy itself. Rather, nurtured in this difference, the plant grows until it fills the horizon. So here's a second picture of rice paddies, and the paddies are still there, but the rice has become mature. So the difference is still there, but it is not the key thing. Only unity is visible, but unity is possible only as difference is maintained. So this is the prayer. So pray it with me. Lord, make us realize that our Christianity is like a rice field. When it is newly planted, the paddies are prominent. But as the plants take root and grow together, these divided paddies gradually vanish, and soon there appears only one vast continuous field. So give us roots that love grows, and help us grow in Christian fellowship and service, that your will be done in our lives through our Saviour, your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. I don't know if a round of applause for John at this stage. Yeah. And we look forward to your next two sessions over the next 2 days as we continue this pilgrim journey, travelling with grace and resistance outside the gate. So let us just pause for a moment. Thank you, Synod. Thank you, Joan and John, for our devotions and our Bible study. We come now to our Q&A with our Synod institutions. And I invite the chairs and CEOs of UEthical, Uniting Age Well, and Uniting Victas to take the stage. Reports B3, B4, and B5. And this session, the format for this session will be a presentation from one of the institutions, followed by some for table group discussions to reflect on the report and presentation, and then time for questions. We will do this for each body, and if time permits, we will take some general questions at the end. So I welcome the Uniting Age Well Board Chair, Raylene Thompson, and CEO Andrew Kingsley to provide their 5-minute presentation.
Thank you, moderator. Great to be here. Thank you all for your time. I'm not going to say much because I want Andrew to be able to fill you in on some of the more strategic issues going on in the organisation. So I did want to say I live and work on Wurundjeri land and pay my respects to elders past and present. I wanted to just mention we continue as a board to focus on governance based on a skill set and a values alignment. And we're very confident that we have a wonderful board going forward. I wanted to acknowledge that we have 2 new board members, Andy Calder and David Currow. I think many of you will know Andy, but David is not known to most of you, I imagine, but we're thrilled to have him. He's got a fabulous skill set in clinical and palliative care. In that process, I also wanted to acknowledge a couple of past important people in the life of Uniting Age Well. One is Beth Horsfield, who many will know has recently passed away. She was a board member during 2006 to 2009. Now, I wasn't there at that time, so I've reached out to Janet Wood, who many of you know, was the first chair of the board, and asked her to reflect on Beth's contribution. She mentioned that she thought Beth brought a firm commitment to her church and mission to others in the work that she did with the board. She was a strikingly clear thinker, astutely identifying issues for older Australians and looking for solutions. So we wish to pay our respects and offer our condolences to family and friends. And in that train of thought, we also want to acknowledge a previous person who was integral to the formation of Uniting Age Well in 2004, and that's Imus Thompson. Imus passed away last year, and we have acknowledged Imus on several occasions, but I just wanted to mention it here and let you all know that as part of the recognition of the work she did with the organisation, we have stood up a perpetual scholarship in her name that will be a clinical scholarship that will be awarded annually, and we very much wanted to acknowledge the work that she did. I'd also just very briefly like to mention the 20th anniversary celebrations. Oh, no, that didn't work. Here, Andrew, you see if the clicker can work, sorry. It's 20 years since courageous people, many in this room, made a decision to bring all the various boards of aged care services across the Synod of VicTas together, and we've been working hard to make that strategic and difficult decision worthwhile, and last year was the 20th anniversary, so we took the opportunity to celebrate, and that photo there shows the 4 board chairs during that time. We were thrilled that we could invite the previous chairs along. So I'm just going to stop there and hand over to Andrew in the interest of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Rolene. Moderator, members of Synod. Thank you, Rowan. My name's Andrew Kinnersley, and I've been the CEO at Uniting Age Well since 2016. I live on the lands of the Wathaurong people. I lost my dad and best mate in February 2024. He was a footballer, a farmer, he had a guitar and he could sing. In the 1970s, most men wanted to be Elvis. I was confident at that stage that Elvis wanted to be Dad. He had a story. We all have a story. When you watch a family member or a friend grow older, we often see physical decline, and increasingly we see cognitive decline. During these times, what is it we need from our aged care providers? High quality care should be a given. The magic is how we show kindness, respect and integrity. There's no rocket science. Kindness, respect and integrity, irrespective of colour, religion, gender or sexuality. As Sister Allison said yesterday, with much wisdom, I will take our report as read. However, I wanted to leave 4 quick points. Uniting Age Well has become a serious aged care provider. In 2016, we cared for 2,000 people. By June 2026, I anticipate we will care for more than 20,000 people. I pose these questions. Is there a learning here for Synod? How can growth be contagious? How can capability be shared? Point 2, we're investing in infrastructure. A couple of photos of some of the things that we're doing across Uniting Age Well. I'll go back to Strathaven in Rosetta. As I say, we're investing in infrastructure, in acquisitions and in capability. We're doing that now so that we'll be strong, sustainable and relevant into the future. Is there a learning there? Point 3, financially we've been both shaken and stirred by the pandemic, but we've survived, but many will not. I must say I developed a nervous tic yesterday when the reference was made to PPE. In our world, that means personal protective equipment, of which we've spent many millions of dollars. And my last point, we're more than a revenue stream to Synod. We're more than an organisation that needs to be monitored or to be governed by Synod. We are the work of the church. We care for the vulnerable. We invest in thriving communities. We are building authentic partnerships with First People. We're a leader in spiritual care and trauma-informed care for care leavers, and we're reducing our carbon footprint. With kindness, respect and integrity, we say thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like to invite you all into table group discussions, and after the table group discussions, we'll invite questions from the floor to Uniting Age Well. So to consider if there are particular questions from your table and nominate someone to ask it, and they should come to the microphone as soon as the invitation is extended. So 5 minutes in table group discussions of questions that might arise, and then we're going to invite some questions. Thank you. Thank you, Synod. I'd like to draw our attention back. We'll invite some questions for Uniting Age Well. And if you can come to the microphones, make your way to the microphone. Yes, thank you. black microphone. Thank you.
No. Yep. Avril Hannah-Jones, Yarra Yarra Presbytery. I spend a lot of my time visiting residential aged care of various sorts because that's where most of my congregation now is. I notice the workforce is almost completely reliant on immigration. I also know that some aged care providers have closed down because they haven't felt able to cover the pay increase, which we definitely need in an aged care. We need a workforce that is appropriately remunerated. And I'm just wondering what Uniting Aged Well is thinking about that. Will we be able to have properly paid staff?
Thank you for the question. How I would answer that is to say, yes, we can and we must. You won't survive if you can't, and I think that's what we're seeing. And you make a relevant point that some providers are failing and are closing, and there's a lot of consolidation within the sector. So I think if you're a small provider in particular, or you have poor infrastructure, or you don't have a lot of cash in the bank, you will fail, and that's a sad reality. That provides opportunities for organisations like Uniting Aged Well, who are large and strong. We've recently, you were seen in the report, we've recently taken over Latvian Aged Care and Retirement Living. That's an example of an organisation that was asset rich but cash poor and not able to survive. So we're in a really strong position to be able to do that. I agree with you. I think the pay increases received were well overdue, and what that's done is it's helped rebalance the workforce because we're losing a lot of aged care workers to the public hospitals and to disability and other areas. So that's helped to create sustainability for our workforce needs, and I think that's been really important. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm recognising that we're probably not going to get to answer all the questions, but what I'll do is I'll invite all the questions to be voiced, and then instead of answering each question, but I recognise there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they will be the questions that we'll hear. But also remind Synod that there are deep dive sessions later on that can also be engaged with. So we'll just hear the questions or the comments, and then we'll move on to the next one. Thank you.
Thank you, Moderator. Nicole from the Port Phillip West Presbytery on the lands of the Wurundjeri people. 2 questions, if we may, or a comment and a question. The first one was we wanted to flag the importance of keeping relationships and couples together as legislations and policies progress for the dignity of people. And so we were just hoping that there was some work that was being done and that was something that was being advocated. We just wanted to flag that. And the second question we had was around what does the UCA need to hear and learn from the growth that's happening within Aged Well and within like maybe spiritual care and etc. that the church can then implement within our church spaces or in supporting you as Aged Well.
Thank you. Next question.
Chris Barnett, Presbytery of Yarra Yarra, live on the land of the Bunurong, and it's turned out very similar to the last question from Nicole. You talked, Andrew, about how can growth be contagious, and I think an enthusiasm be shared. So yeah, what can we learn from Aged Well, Uniting Aged Well, over the past 10 years? Thank you.
Moderator Amanda Nicholas, Port Phillip West Presbytery, living on the lands of the Wurundjeri people. My pronouns are she, her. We had a discussion at our table about the trauma-informed care that you were talking about in the report, and our wondering was what is it at the moment that the Synod needs to hear and learn about how we can start to think about trauma-informed care practices in our local communities, given that it's become something that we're hearing about from ADF chaplains and Aged Well and other places. It seems like we have some work that we need to do around that in our local settings as well, and how can we be resourced by places like Uniting Aged Well, who are already stepping into those spaces.
Thank you. And our last question, Geraldine.
Geraldine Leonard, Presbytery of North East Victoria. I live in the land of the Tongaron people. Really just all of the above, but to add two things. One, that from our table, table number 1, the naughty table in the corner, that we were proud of the work that you do, so thank you. And to add the dimension that I live in rural contexts, others on the table did also, and we find ourselves in very similar circumstances with buildings, people attached. There has been learning from that, and we need to hear that learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Geraldine. And thank you, Raylene and Andrew, for your presentation. And also to remind people that there will be deep dive sessions to engage a little bit deeper. I'd like to invite now Uniting Vic Tas Board Chairperson, the Reverend Al McRae, and CEO Carol Jeffs to provide their 5-minute presentation.
Thank you, Moderator, Chair-elect actually.
Sorry.
Good morning, members of Synod. Moderator, my name is Alistair McRae, Deputy Chair of Uniting Vic Tas, and I live and work on the lands of the Wurundjeri people. If I may, thank you, Raylene, for acknowledging Beth Horsfield's death. I'll actually be conducting her funeral tomorrow morning, and with your permission, we'll convey the condolences and the appreciation of the Synod for Beth's life and her incredible contribution to the life and witness of the Uniting Church. It's a pleasure to introduce Uniting's report, and timely, as we've just completed our 2030 strategic plan, which is entitled Strengthening the Foundations for Living. Whoops, that's not the right. Oh. There it is. Strengthening the Foundations for Living, which is a pretty good summary of all our work. Uniting legally is an institution of the Synod. We're often referred to as an agency of the Church. Increasingly, the language that we're hearing, including of Age Well, is that we are an expression of the Church, which I quite like. And hopefully, even more fundamentally, our work is an expression of the gospel, which directs us to use the resources available to us to respond to the needs of the most vulnerable individuals and communities. And proactively, of course, to advocate and work for more just and inclusive social arrangements. Echoes here surely of the gospel reading that we heard at that marvellous opening service the other day. As you've read our written report, I hope you will judge that we are fulfilling that role as best we can. Concretely, as on the slide, through a multiplicity of services, our role is to provide services that reduce the impact of poverty, trauma, and disadvantage. Moderator, it's a special pleasure to introduce to you and to members of the Synod our brand new CEO. Carol Jeffs succeeded Bronwyn Pike 2 months ago. Carol comes to us from a CEO role in local government, which of course included the provision of community services and housing, and before that was an economics academic and teacher. So, moderator, this is Carol. Members of Synod, this is Carol. Carol, this is by adoption your new family.
Thank you, Al, moderator. And I live and work on the land of the Wurundjeri, so thank you for the wonderful introduction. It's really a pleasure to be here today, and I will provide a very brief introduction to the work of Uniting Vic Tas. On the screen you'll see a range of services that we provide all over Victoria and Tasmania. And in doing so, I would like to acknowledge the history of Uniting Vic Tas and the coming together of over 20 foundation organisations 7 or 8 years ago, well before my time, and the work that came before bringing them together. So today, we are one organisation with over 4,000 staff and growing, having a huge impact on the lives of Victoria and Tasmania's most vulnerable people. I know our strategy is titled Foundations for Living. I also know I've only been here 8 weeks, but I see the work that we do, and I am out and about looking, speaking to our staff and our consumers and our congregations. I see the work that we do. I think that in fact we provide foundations for life in our work, and it is very powerful. So through our strategy, we have ambitions to grow our services in Melbourne's growth areas, regional Victoria and Tasmania. I'd just like to talk about, briefly, a few of our services. You'll have seen, or you might have seen the photo briefly at the beginning that Al skipped over. It's a photo of Al and Bronwyn and others cutting the ribbon at our Wangaratta housing project, which was opened in March of this year. It provides around 90 people safe, stable and secure homes. This was the first project of many to come under Uniting's ambitious housing program, and although supported by Victoria's Big Build, the real heroes of this story are the Wangaratta congregation, who worked with us and continue to support community. So from us to you, thank you. Our pipeline of projects include Bendigo, 73 units to be completed late this year, early next year, and new projects in Coburg, Ballarat, Ringwood and Ivanhoe, and more to come. Early learning, a bit like Andrew was talking about, our early learning services have kind of exploded. We offer 3 and 4-year-old kindergarten, long day care and out of school hours care, and it's grown rapidly in the last few years. We're now home to 84 centres across Victoria and Tasmania, servicing around 3,000 children and their families. And family preservation, not often spoken about because this is really, really important work, but also very sensitive work. We support families in all different forms to stay together safely and to reunify where possible. So these services also include foster care, and here comes a plug. We always need more volunteers to be foster carers. So if you or you know someone who would be willing, come and talk to us. We'd be very happy to connect you up with our foster care team. This service also includes family violence services and child protection related services. And this is a large part of the work that we do at Uniting. And finally, an emergency relief update. We know that providing material aid and meals has been and continue to be at the very heart of local support and missional work for decades. It's happened for a long time. So we're really proud to work alongside you, providing these very important services in communities, but we've recently received some disappointing funding news regarding our emergency relief centres, which will impact some of our locations from the 1st of October this year. So without taking up too much more time, if you'd like to know more about that, or you'd like to come and say hello, there'll be a Meet Me session, which is amazing, all about me, I guess. But if you'd like to ask more questions about that or anything else, please come along, and of course our deep dive session as well.
Thank you. So into table groups for a couple of minutes, and what might arise in some questions that we will only take a few questions or comments, and then we will continue. So please turn into your table groups for a couple of minutes, and then we'll come back and hear maybe 1 or 2 questions from the table. Thank you, Synod. If there are any questions or comments, can you please make your way to the microphones? And what we will do is we will, like what we did in the other presentation, we'll just have the comments heard and all questions. So please,
Would you give your attention to the moderator, please? He's trying to explain the process that we're about to follow. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you. So yeah, please, if you have a question or a comment, please make your way to the microphone. We will hear all those questions and comments, and then we will move on to our next presentation.
Thank you, moderator. Chris Phillips, Presbytery of Yarra Yarra, Wurundjeri Country. My question is, when a service that's provided by another organisation moves to being provided by Uniting VicTAS, what do you see as the distinctly Uniting Church point of difference that we provide in that change of service?
Thank you. Microphone, the black microphone.
Ines McLeod from Port Phillip East. I live on the land of the Wurundjeri people. My question is, you sort of slid over the change that's coming up that's going to affect everything that's happening in our food banks. Can you just give us a bit of a hint as to what that is?
I will be just taking questions and comments, but there will be no response because there will be deep dive sessions that we can engage in, but allow the questions and comments to come and we'll hear them together. Thank you. Orange microphone, please.
It's Paddy Mulcahy, and I worship on the Bunurong, I think it's Gippsland. I think I've got everything ticked off. Someone on the table here would like to know what requirements Uniting are looking for that congregations could be aware of regarding bequeaths, donations of property and land that could be used for social housing.
Thank you. And the black microphone.
Bronwyn Howard, Presbytery of Tasmania, Letter of Mariner people. I just have one thing with the violence against women. Have you ever considered acknowledging that there's actually violence against men, and can we change some of that mindset, please?
Thank you. And I just encourage you all to into those deep dive sessions that will be happening later on to engage in, and some of those responses will be answered in those deep dive sessions. And thank you, Al and Carol, for your report. We now move on to U Ethical and the board chair, Fiona Pearce, and the CEO, Matt Browning, to provide their 5-minute presentation.
Moderator, members of Synod, I'm Fiona Pearce, the Chair of U Ethical, and I live and work on the Wurundjeri lands. At U Ethical, we have 3 key priorities. 1, we manage the church and others' investments to deliver great returns. As an example, the Synod invests over $500 million with us. Last year, we earned over $57 million of returns, including capital gains for you. That pays for a lot of staff and a lot of the costs and operations of the church. From U Ethical's surplus, we also deliver a grant to the church. Last year, that was $1.25 million. And thirdly, and very importantly, we make sure that the synods and others' money is invested in line with the church's values. And we have an extensive advocacy program with the companies that we invest in to try to bring justice and better industry practices and the church's beliefs actively expanded into the world. So we leverage your investments to make the world a better place, more in line with the kingdom of God. I'm now going to outline these 3 points in more detail. First, investment returns. Our flagship Australian equities product produces highly competitive investment returns. Over the last 3 years, you can see there we were ranked 30 out of 262 Australian equities funds. That places us pretty much at the top 10% of all funds in Australia, which is impressive given we have a very small team with very limited resources. To be operating at that level is something that we can all be proud of. And also, those 262 funds include not just those like us, which have got limited by ethical restrictions, but in fact it's all funds. So you can be really confident that your money, AgeWell's, Unitings, etc., is earning excellent returns. Now this slide reflects our first and our second purpose, our excellent investment returns, but also our second purpose, the grant to the church. In the last few years, we have had a strategy to expand our customer base beyond the church. And because we've got excellent returns, this makes it possible. We want to grow the grant to the church. And we have been methodically putting in place all the building blocks to make this happen. We have developed products which are now investable. We've got the right team in place. In the last 12 months, we gained an external rating from a company called Zenith, which you can see there, which significantly enables us to therefore gain access to third-party platforms, which we've done earlier this year, which essentially gives us a shop front so that more people can actually buy our products. We've gained the very top rating for sustainability from the most highly regarded responsible investment body in Australasia, and we have won 8 different awards over the last 3 years for our Australian equities product. Now, this is not second or third place, but it's first place for outstanding performance. So you can, again, be really proud of what UEthical's doing on the Synod's behalf. And this slide focuses on the grant. Since 1995, UEthical has contributed $68 million to the Synod in grants, and we're working to increase this in coming years. And I'll hand over to Matt.
Thank you. My name's Matt Browning. I'm the CEO of UEthical, and I live and work on Wurundjeri land. Picking up on the comment about the contribution, as the chart shows, since my tenure, it's actually dropped off. That was not the intent. We're working very hard to make it go the other way. There are all sorts of reasons for it dropping off, including investing in the business, including transitions of products, and all sorts of other things. But the focus very much is on growing that contribution to enable the church's work. One of the things that has happened over my tenure is the level of professionalism, competitiveness and recognition that the business has been through. I'll be candid, we did not go and sell the church when we were going to see clients when I first arrived. Now we do, because the work of the church in the community is fabulous, and so we're going to have the confidence and competitiveness and the external recognition and rating to be able to go and actually sell the church's work to potential clients. We did a bit of research that said the perception of the church in our target client base amongst advisors is neutral to positive. Neutral's good enough for them to give us money. That's what we're after. Fiona mentioned that we invest the churches and other clients' capital to drive positive change. This is in all sorts of areas across social and environmental aspects of what we do. We have a passionate stewardship manager who is extremely well recognised across the industry. She's on the board now of the Responsible Investment Association of Australasia. And our voice is heard. We punch way above our weight in relation to, I mean, we manage $1.5 billion. That sounds a lot of money. Some of our competitors manage hundreds of billions of dollars. But in the space of advocacy and engagement, we truly punch way above our weight. That is largely, I think, due to the presence of the church. Mark Zernzak is a wonderful collaborator. I think he probably leads and we follow most of the time, but we work very closely together in all sorts of spaces. And where the rubber really hits the road is actually engagement. It's talking to companies about their practices, those that we commend, but also those that we would like them to change. And notwithstanding the fact that we are, as Fiona said, a small team, our total complement is 24 people. We have 2 people focused in this space, dedicated in this space. But we talk to a lot of companies. We let them know what we believe. We let them know what we like about what they do and what we don't. And in some instances, we actively engage at a very detailed level. We're leading an exercise in relation to the banking industry and the financing of fossil fuels. We've got some big names behind that, so it's not just us. That's a collaborative thing. We're also the lead on the Climate 100 action with Woolworths. So there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes in relation to advocating on behalf of the church's values. And with that, I'm not going to answer any questions, I understand.
Yeah. Please, Synod, empty your tables and a couple of minutes to just talk amongst yourselves about some questions, and then we will hear some questions and comments on the floor. Thank you. Members of Synod, if there are any questions or comments, please, to the microphones, as we need to keep moving. We have quite a full agenda, and there are some things that we need to return to. And so I invite some questions or comments. The black microphone.
Thank you, moderator. I'm Kate Scull. I live on worship on Wurundjeri land and in Port Phillip West. So I'm aware that the major banks are a really stable investment, but they're not necessarily a very ethical investment. So I just wanted to question how we're balancing that and always pushing towards the most ethical thing. Thank you.
Thank you. The red microphone, sorry.
Paddy Mulcahy, the Bunurong Country, Worship and Work, and Gippsland Shire, Gippsland Presbytery. Yeah. The table would like to ask specifically regarding online portals for retail investment. So essentially having trouble for mums and dads being able to access products, especially on your online capacity, and just making general access more functional without having, say, financial planners being the intermediary. Second would be that given the prominence of the cryptocurrency industry, now containing $4 trillion of value, and the emergence of ethical exchange-traded funds, ETFs, whether they're spot or future funds, does UEthical have a plan between now and 2030, again with central bank digital currencies, etc., and blockchain currencies coming? Do you have a plan to access the upside opportunity of emerging ethical markets so that when this body is considering large funds being parked until 2070, there may actually be access to future money markets as well. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sure I'll take notes, and as there will be deeper dives into that a little later. Thank you. Red microphone.
Robert Stringer from Presbytery Yarra Yarra on Wurundjeri country. Just a question, how does the machinations of President Trump affect the investment community?
Thank you, Robert. So, thank you. I'd just like to remind you all that to ask more questions at the deep dive sessions on Monday with our institutions. But at this moment, I'd just like to thank all our presenters and the institutions for undertaking the crucial work and important work that they do as part of the wider Uniting Church. Thank you. Can I invite the facilitation team? Ian, sorry. Thanks to everyone. Yes. Thanks to everyone for your time in working groups yesterday and for the very timely return of your feedback forms. We're going to continue in an information session and hear a brief report from the facilitation team about the feedback from working groups. This afternoon, we will have space in the agenda to ask questions of clarification. And this evening, we will have time for a deliberative session on faithful futures. And so I invite Ian to bring the work of the facilitation team feedback.
Thank you, Moderator. Good morning, everyone. Ian Ferguson, Facilitation Group Convener from Port Phillip East. I live and worship in Glen Waverley, where Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country and Bunurong country meet. Thank you for your stimulating feedback on the Faithful Futures proposal. I think it's, I'll give you a summary of that feedback. There's general support for the proposal with significant discussion about all elements and desire for clarification in there. We'll bring one significant amendment from your feedback, which I'll come to after the summary. So firstly, there was a strong affirmation of the vision. The Faithful Futures vision is widely supported. Groups see it as a hopeful roadmap, but urge clearer articulation of its theological and missional underpinnings. The vision should feel actionable and context sensitive, serving both city and rural communities. 3 groups, however, described the vision as too small, confusing, or not bold enough, with timelines seen as too slow. The goals. Groups affirm the intent of the goals, but stress the need for clarity, measurability, and inspiration. Many want the goals to explicitly embrace leadership development, discipleship, evangelism, and church planting, alongside ongoing commitments like respecting country. 4 groups said the goals lack clear, measurable outcomes or are unrealistic. 3 groups called for stronger inclusion of Congress, TMEC, Uniting Age Well and lay leadership. 3 groups criticised the absence of explicit LGBTQIA+ inclusion. The implementation section. Many groups worry the proposed structures could feel bureaucratic, top-heavy or distant from congregations. There's strong support for grassroots-driven leadership, relational decision-making and context-specific approaches, ensuring rural and regional churches are not overlooked. A couple of groups preferred presbytery-driven models over centralised structures, and a couple of groups urged a Commonwealth resource redistribution. The steering committee and project lead. There was mixed feedback about these, significant differences of opinion. Some see them as these roles as crucial for coordination and accountability, while others fear overburdening one leader and adding bureaucracy. Groups emphasise the need for clear role definitions, potential regional leadership models, and improved communication between presbyteries, city and rural congregations. 6 groups saw the project lead role as overloaded, preferring a team-based approach. 2 groups gave no support for the steering committee. Goal-focused groups. These groups were seen as a strong opportunity for collaboration, partnership and unity building, but there's scepticism among you about volunteer availability and duplication of existing efforts. 5 groups expressed significant doubts over capacity, suggesting repurposing existing networks. In general, some general feedback for the whole proposal. You said renewal must be intercultural, inclusive, and rooted in theology and mission. More attention is needed for leadership development in called and second-gen communities and stronger integration of discipleship, evangelism, and theological training. 6 groups criticised the perceived dominant culture bias, urging deeper intercultural work. While hopeful, groups warned against slow implementation. The urgency of decline and opportunities for renewal demand bold and timely action. Many stories were told along the way during group discussions and not recorded. A few were mentioned which we'll pass on to the relevant places. Now, the proposed amendment, and I think we'll see this up on the screen. Multiple groups called for new and renewing Christian communities to be a named priority in the proposal with clear strategic and financial backing. Based on your feedback and on consultation with the original proposers, we looked at various options before deciding to bring you a new Clause D. Will we see this on the screen? Yeah, here it is, thank you. So the new Clause D, to request the Faithful Futures Steering Committee to establish a task group to consider particular funding and strategy to resource and support new and renewing Christian communities within the framework of the 4 Faithful Futures goals, and to report to the Faithful Futures Steering Committee within 6 months of its establishment. This new Clause D then requires the renumbering of the subsequent clauses and a couple of minor changes. The new Clause E will then request the Synod Standing Committee to finalise the FFSC's terms of reference, noting Clause C and D added above. In the new Clause F, just a word addition there. the Synod Standing Committee, just to clarify and harmonise those clauses. So that's what we propose. That'll go up in the app, I presume. If it's not
Yes.
it's already up in the app, so you can have a look at it there. Okay, there's Working Group 1's feedback.
Thank you, Ian, and the facilitation team. We are not taking any questions, but as I said before, this afternoon there will be space in the agenda to ask questions and clarification. And this evening we will have time for a deliberative session on Faithful Futures. I invite now the business convener to offer a procedural proposal.
Thank you, Moderator. We move to the work of proposal number 5, and Synod members will see that about the frequency of Synod meetings. Synod members will see that if the proposed change in frequency of Synod meetings is resolved, there's a subsequent clause to extend the moderator's term of placement to 4 years rather than the current 3 years, and that would commence with the current moderator. As this may have a direct impact on the current moderator's term, even though the primary matter is about process rather than the actual moderator, the Business Committee considers that it's appropriate for another person to chair this item. And the current moderator supports that view. So it'd be our usual practice to have the ex-moderator take the chair. However, as the ex-moderator is moving this proposal on behalf of the Synod Standing Committee and in his role as former chairperson of the Synod Meeting Planning Committee, it's not possible for him to step into that. So in the past, when the ex-moderator has not been available to take the chair, the Business Committee works our way chronologically back through moderators who are members of the meeting to see who's available. And for this meeting, that's the Reverend Sharon Hollis. Consequently, the Business Committee recommends that Sharon, as the most recent past moderator who is a Synod member, assume the chair for the business of proposal number 5. This is a procedural motion, so it requires 50%.
Thank you. It's been resolved.
You've got to look after me now, Joan. Can I close this for now? Thank you. Members of Synod, I'm going to now invite the Reverend David Fotheringham and the Reverend Deacon Marion Bissett, who will present the proposal related to proposal number 5. Thank you, David.
Moderator, David Fotheringham, ex-moderator. I live on Wurundjeri country. This is report number C1.4 and proposal number 5. Soon after the 2023 Synod meeting, the Synod Meeting Planning Committee spent some time reflecting on the feedback and evaluations from that meeting and from prior Synod meetings. And we consulted with the ELM Younger Generations team and with other Synods. Under the regulations, Synods can determine their own pattern of meeting. We could meet every other month if we wanted to. And one Synod did try having a meeting that met monthly over a period of 9 months. One other Synod is just beginning a 2-year cycle now. The only stipulation in the regulations is that the Synod must meet at least every 3 years. Synod meetings are about how we engage in discerning God's will for the church together. Generally, meeting too frequently may mean less engagement as people juggle their commitments. Meeting too infrequently means less engagement in another sense, as we need to allow Synod to engage with matters with issues together as a synod. Feedback also suggests that a regular timing cycle is helpful, rather than moving around anywhere between June and November as we currently end up doing. The changes that we are proposing have been through a consultation process with all presbyteries as well as other reporting bodies. Bodies consulted have overwhelmingly been warm to the proposal, as you can see in the linked materials. This is a proposal for a balanced approach. Under this proposal, the Synod would always meet in late August or early September, making for a much more straightforward planning, reporting and appointment cycle. There's a major Synod meeting every 2 years. In the in-between years, there's provision for a minor meeting, which could be online, using the same membership as was appointed to the previous meeting, to do things like appointments for assembly, elections of a moderator-elect, or anything else deemed appropriately important. It's worth being clear, you are all Synod members until the next major meeting of Synod. So you are not just appointed for 4 days, you are appointed from this Synod through to a new Synod being appointed. So, this pattern that's being proposed allows for a clear cycle of reporting with an appropriate time for measuring the effects of decisions and strategic directions. For some things, 1 year may be too quick. The Standing Committee would, of course, meet through the intervening periods, so the proposal includes consequential adjustments to the terms of Standing Committee members. And as is already the case, it's important to bring a good mix of people with wisdom, faith and skills to the Standing Committee. The proposal also, as has been flagged already, includes a consequential amendment to the term of moderator, which proposed would be for which would still be for 2 cycles of Synod meetings, so that means for 4 years. I believe that the continuity that provides for the Church is likely to be helpful for the Church, for church relationships and for moderators. The proposal is that we begin this pattern from the conclusion of this Synod meeting, with arrangements for a review to be brought to the Synod meeting after the next 2 cycles, or to the Synod meeting after next. I commend this proposal to you. And Moderator, Marion is my seconder. I'm not sure where Marion is, but she was not intending to add any more words.
Thank you. I wanted to check first, are there questions for clarification? Could I take I'm not sure whether it's orange or red, but the microphone that looks in that colour hue.
It's red.
Thank you.
Chris Phillips. Just wondering, you mentioned that the 1 year meeting in the shorter meeting is optional, but I'm just trying to work out if the moderator-elect needs to be elected at the off-year meeting, is there actually a realistic possibility that there will be no meeting on the minor meeting?
Moderator, no, the response to that is if we need to do something like that, then yes, we will meet. And in fact, if you plot it out over the next 6 years or so, you can see that there will be a meeting for an assembly elections, then in the next off year there'll be a meeting for a moderator election. So it is likely that more often than not there will be an in-between meeting.
I see 3 questions lined up at the black microphone, so I'm going to ask all 3 to ask their questions and for David to scribble them down furiously and then he'll answer all 3 together. Thank you at the black microphone.
Dale, Yarra Yarra Presbytery, unceded Wurundjeri land. I'm in full support of this, but as someone that owns their own business, has 4 adult children living at home, the reports are already significantly long and we were only given really 2 weeks, some reports less, that we put a 30-day stipulation on reports being in, so a full 30 days for members to consider the reports, and that the 1 year meeting...
Do you have a question?
Sorry, yeah, that we... if you want people like us to be involved, we need more support in that process. Thank you. And whether that be considered.
I understand this. At the moment, I really do want to try and focus on questions for clarification. There will be time for debate and that sort of thing after questions for clarification, but thank you. Black microphone.
Thank you, Moderator. Peter Harvey. At this stage of my life, I'm privileged to journey on the land of the Palawa Pakana people in the Presbytery of Lutruwita. My question concerns the passage of conversation around issues that affect the various councils of the church, particularly as issues are raised in, say, assembly that need to come down through Synod and presbytery and congregation for acceptance, and as those passages that by extending our time of meeting to 2 years, how that might affect the passage of those conversations and the acceptance of issues and changes in constitution and or regulation and stuff like that might happen. I don't see a lot of issue of that in the a conversation around that in the proposal. It's mainly about how it affects a synod, but not about how it affects the relationships with the other councils. So I'm wondering if there can be some more points being raised about that in the... Thanks.
And I'll take the last question that I saw on the black microphone and then I'll ask David to respond.
Peter Mitchell, I'm from Port Phillip West Presbytery, and I live and work and worship and play and whatever else, pretty much all on Wurundjeri land. As a changeover occurs, there will be people who's expecting their terms to finish in 1 year from this synod, but will be asked to go to 2 years. Are there arrangements in place for this?
Thank you, David. If you could answer those questions, and then we'll come to other questions after that.
Thanks, Moderator. Firstly, thank you for the questions. To Dale, that can certainly come up in evaluations, and so we have evaluations at the end of every Synod meeting, and I do encourage all members to consider things like that as we go along. What would you like included to feedback? Peter 1, with respect to timing for assembly matters, no, it's true, we didn't say a lot about that in the report, but the timing is actually quite convenient in terms of the next assembly in 2027. We'll be receiving some major proposals. We will then actually be meeting as a synod a few months after that, so in a lot of ways it's actually quite convenient. With respect to Peter 2, the changes from 18 months to 2 years for someone ongoing in this, and that is part of this proposal. So I don't have much more to say about this, except that members of Standing Committee are aware of this because this has come from the Standing Committee. F2 in the proposal.
I'll take the question on the, now I've forgotten again whether it's red or orange, but that one over there.
Red, Moderator. Thank you, Nicole Mugford. I had a question of clarification around just the language of minor meeting. I'm a bit confused about what that means. So in a 2-year cycle of a synod meeting, one, we would install a new moderator. It would be exciting, woohoo. And then the other 2-year cycle, we elect a moderator-elect. Are you saying on the electing meeting that's the minor meeting, or are we suggesting that's in between, the 2 years in between where an additional meeting may be necessary?
Moderator, let me try to describe it like this. Yes, so I'll work through this pattern of the next few years. So 2025, we're having a meeting, we're installing a new moderator. 2026, where only having a smaller meeting might be online, something like that, dealing with essential matters like appointments to the 2027 Assembly. 2027, we have a major meeting. 2028, we appoint a moderator-elect, so it can be a smaller meeting. We deal with appointing a moderator-elect so that the moderator-elect has a 1-year time as elect before 2029, the major meeting when the new moderator is installed. So this also reduces the time the moderator spends as moderator-elect while extending the time that they are moderator, which from the perspective of someone who's been through that process, is a good thing.
Do you have a follow-up question at the microphone?
Yes, moderator. Do we need to evacuate? That's not my question. But so does that mean that we meet, like we have in-depth conversations every 4 years then about things that will be reported?
Every 2.
I'm so confused. Thank you.
Every 2, yeah.
Members of Synod, we're going to need to pause this business because we've got to move on to our fixed order of the day, which is morning tea, and I never like to get between people and a cup of tea. So what I want to do before, thank you, before we do that, I want to just, for testing, to help guide the business committee to see where we will reschedule this piece of work. For testing, could I see at this point in time how you're feeling about this proposal? Thank you for that. You can put your cards down. Could I offer a card-holding tip at this point? It's the first time I've been up here and seen the new shaped cards. Please make sure you hold your card, if you're able to see it, at the bottom so that the shape that's cut out, exactly like the General Secretary's demonstrating, to help people who are vision impaired, particularly with colour blindness, be able to see the shape that's being held. It helps them be included with all of us to see the mood of the meeting. We will move now to announcements from the business convener.
Thank you, moderator. There's a few announcements this morning because we don't meet collectively again till later this afternoon. So buckle up. Some of them involve free stuff, so listen carefully. A reminder that the Synod Standing Committee nominations close at 2 p.m, the end of our lunch break, so please ensure signed nomination forms are returned to the business office by then. Immediately after morning tea at 11:30, the elective sessions will commence. We suggest you head off to that around 11:20 because some of them are some distance to travel. And have a look at the organising team in orange vests. We'll help direct you to those, and they're also in your app. Don't forget to visit the displays today over the breaks, as we will welcome all new displays tomorrow, aside from the Uniting VicTas pop-up op shop and display, which will be here for all 4 days. And as part of Uniting's sponsorship, here's the free stuff, well, an opportunity. They have provided 2 hampers with products from their fire and clay social enterprise, which has been providing meaningful employment and a sense of community for people living with a disability for over 30 years. To have a chance to be in the lucky draw for one of these hampers, you need to visit the Uniting display in the lower hall and pop your name in a bowl. It's that easy. And we'll be drawing a lucky recipient tonight and Monday night. After electives, we break for lunch, during which time there are 2 lunchtime sessions to which you can BYO your own lunch and hear about. There are flyers on the tables and info in the app, and sessions cover the work of Uniting World and time with Carol Jeffs, the new CEO of Uniting VicTas. So Carol's not the Chief Operating Officer, as is on the flyer. Apologies, Carol, for that. At 2 p.m, we return to this hall for the tributes service, and we'll be welcoming additional guests for that time. So there's no need to sit in your table groups. Please just come in and find a seat wherever you can. It's going to get a bit more cosy, but please make our guests welcome. And more freebies, Uniting Age Well are sponsoring free coffees for members throughout the day today. Ooh. If you'd like a free coffee, please collect your ticket from the information desk in the foyer and present it to Christian at the coffee cart. Uniting Age Well have also provided some eyeglass cleaning cloths for all members that are on your tables today. I've already made use of mine. So please make sure to visit the Uniting Age Well display in the main foyer and thank them for their generosity. One more thing, and this is key. If I could have your attention. I know the free stuff, it's so exciting, but stop with the glasses
Come on, folks, just one more announcement, please. Thank you.
When you leave to go to morning tea, we need you to take all your items or leave them really neatly stacked on your table because we're going to have to move furniture in this hall for the tribute service. So please make sure you take anything precious with you. And we'll see you back here for that service. Thank you, Moderator and members of Synod.
Thank you. And now we are off to morning tea. Thank you.